dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Andrew back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, continuing our conversation with Dave Patterson, who remains Dave Patterson, Liberty Nation's national security correspondent. Thanks for sticking around, Dave. Now, just in our last segment there, we touched on how Mark Carney may have placed Canada on the menu for its flirtatious overtures with other of the poles of power in the world. And I think that was a brilliant point to come back on, because what we're seeing is after Trump at Davos, and it wasn't just the speech was just the cumulative point of a range of different things. So getting Maduro in Venezuela, taking out Iran's nuclear capability, threatening, and then coming to a framework deal on Greenland. All of these things that Donald Trump's doing, it sort of came to a head with the Davos speech. But what we've seen is that certain countries, and I include my home country of the UK in this, are starting to look at the other powers on the understanding that, well, Trump is insisting on this particular world order that's not the one that we've all globally agreed on. And so they're looking, of all places, they can't look to Russia because Russia's embroiled with the war in Ukraine. They're looking to China, which, if you want a completely different world order or world view or cultures and values, China is the diametric opposite to everything that the Western globalists have been espousing for so long, although behind closed doors, they love the power regime, the overall levels of control and surveillance. But why would they even admit that we should move more into China's orbit? I mean, it's fairly clear that China's as much as I love the actual country of China and the people there, China as a government, as a military, and as an economy, it is not just I guess you wouldn't call it like a cooperative play event. It's what's the right way to say this? Well, let's call it it's competition in the very realist sense, the most brutal and basic sense.
Yeah, it is. And quite frankly, whether, Europe wishes to admit to this or not, it is the diametric, as you point, the diametric opposite to everything Western values stand for. And
Need to stand for, yeah.
Yeah, and so what they're making a deal with the devil, if you wish, and I think that they'll live to regret it. They should already understand that they should regret it because they lose all of their intellectual property. They lose so much of the very things that make it that contribute to the EU and Europe generally as an economic power, and they just forsake a lot of things that makes Europe Europe. And I think also you can't look at Europe anymore as some sort of singularly Western in its makeup. You've got this intense migration of third worlders that have come into Europe that has drastically changed the demographic. And so when we look at Europe, it's slightly different than what we used to mean when we said that.
Yeah, well, it's not so much the demographics that's changed, although that is an element. It's the culture of accommodation towards demographics. Now, I speak specifically of the UK here, but this is true of so many other nations, Germany, France, Italy especially, where people are just allowed to turn up on a boat and then the government, rather than sending them back. Now, I know Italy did try to do this, and Matteo Salvini found himself racked up on kidnapping charges because of trying to do this. But the governments of the day, successive governments of the day, have said, "Oh no, well, if you illegally enter the country, then you'll get all of these social benefits. You'll get housing, you'll get medical care, you'll be accepted and treated by the ruling class as just as British as everyone else. And quite frankly, that is the very reason that Nigel Farage's Reform Party is doing so monumentally well. I think they've won 100. They've come top in 180 election polls in a row without fail. And this is because the people at the top have decided that, no, we'll change the culture of Europe in all these individual countries. But of course, if they're all choosing to do it at the same time, that's globalism, baby. There's coordination behind the scenes, most likely at Davos. I don't know, Dave. You tell me.
Well, one of the things that I think you can say is true is that the migration of third world, particularly Northern Africa and Syria, particularly in Germany, Syria, it emphasizes a phenomenon that most quote unquote immigration advocates don't grasp, and that is that migration is different.
Yes.
What is happening is you have these multicultural cantonments that are not assimilated. And so as a consequence, you have people in your demographic that are actively working against the culture that has been thousands of years old. And that becomes a problem. And it also impacts the governments of these nations to be less inclined to grasp, to get back to our original topic, less inclined to grasp the rules-based international order, because it's not part of their culture. It's not part of the way they think. And so consequently, they stand as a barrier to continuing that way of thinking.
Yes, so it's the position where, and of course, the countries of Europe are getting poorer. That's a reality. They're getting poorer, and a lot of that is because Europe counts for, I believe, the figure is around 60% of the world's welfare spending, with 12% of the population, by the way. 60% of the world's welfare spending is in Europe. And a lot of that goes on this mass migration, which, I mean, I think we'll see some troubling things in Europe over the next few years. But we're going to be back with Dave Patterson talking about peace, because that's a cheerier topic after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.